Hi everyone, I'm Johanna, illustrator, ink evangelist and colouring book creator. Today I'm going to show you a tutorial for my new book, Ivy and the Inky Butterfly. We are going to be colouring this dragon here and I'm going to show you 3 different ways to colour his scales. The first thing we have to do is grab some blank sheets of white paper and pop it in the page behind the one that we're working on. This just stops any indentation onto the pages below and also captures any transfer of ink. So now we're all set, let's get colouring. For this tutorial, you will need your copy of Ivy and the Inky Butterfly, your Staedtler Ergosoft colouring pencils, some of their Karat Aquarelle colouring pencils, that's the watercolour ones. I've also used a white jelly roll pen, a colourless blending pencil, a couple of Triplus Fineliners, so that's the dark green and the light green, and also a paintbrush. And the last thing you'll need is some white A4 copy paper. So I'm going to use 2 different colours of watercolour pencil for this bit, and I'm just going to do the scales here. So what I do is I press hard where the scale looks as though it's poking out from underneath the one above, and then a little bit lighter as you get towards the curved section. That gives the impression of them being layered on top of each other. Now I'm going to use a little bit of water on a brush. Just the tiniest bit to go back in and wet that watercolour pencil. So what I do is I try and do that little section that's at the overlap first, and then come down and leave a tiny little crescent of white paper just at the tip of the curve, because then that looks a bit like a reflection. It makes the dragon scales appear shiny or glossy. So for this bit of the dragon's tail, I think when you've got a very large section, it can look a little bit funny if you try and do that all the same colour. So what I'm going to do is do it sort of like a mottled, blended effect of 2 different colours. So a little bit of this green. And then I'm just going to work away using that green, my blender pencil, and also this colour of watercolour pencil, and just try and build up all those layers. And you don't worry if it's not a smooth finish and it looks a little bit sort of tabby, I guess. That's the effect that you want. So I would just keep on building up layers of colour like that and keeping them really mottled. Don't try and get one layer of flat colour where it's consistent all the way. The thing that makes this good is that it is different, and that little bits will sort of knock into each other, and there'll be areas that are more sort of turquoisey and some bits that are more green, some bits where you can see a hard edge between the 2 shades. All that is fine. Then for those bigger scales, I'm going to use this watercolor pencil just to colour the bottom section and leave the tip quite white so that it looks shiny. So I'm almost leaving like a little pointy arrow of white at the top. Then to make them extra shiny, you could use your gel pen. Just to emphasize the highlight. And lastly, I'm going to use a Triplus Fineliner. And I'm going to add some tiny little circles that look like knobbly scales. So because you're working on top of colouring pencil, the pen's going to take a little bit longer to dry. So if you're right-handed, work left to right, and if you're left-handed, be sure to go left to right and not smudge. So just do lots of little areas of these tiny knobbly circles. And I would finish off with a few freckly spots. And I've used a really pale green pen to do some sections in there. In fact, I'll do that as well. So you can barely see these, but it just gives an extra little bit of texture. Lastly, we've got this little section here, which I'm going to do in an Ergosoft and a watercolor pencil, both in the same shade, which is 35. So the colour is pretty similar, but what makes it different is the fact that the watercolor pencil has a really crumbly, sort of soft pigmenty lead, and the Ergosoft is slightly harder. So for all these shapes, I'm just going to push hard at the bottom of that semicircle to lighter, and it creates a really nice feeling of layering and depth. I'm just going to use the watercolor pencil to go quite dark at the outer edge and come in to a really pale highlight. And then lastly, just to give these a bit of a shine, I'm going to use this white gel pen to put little highlights. So there you go, 3 really cool little ways to colour the scales on a dragon. Now as you can see, I've got a bit more work to do, so I'm going to finish him off now. I hope that's given you some tips and tricks for your own colouring, and I can't wait to see what you do with Ivy and the Inky Butterfly. Thanks for watching and happy colouring.